you want to do is just, tell your story about coming out, all that stuff while you get your haircut.
Cool. So I'm 45 now. So I'm the oldest of three girls.
And also, do you want some cut down? You want
Just no, because I'm trying to get my mohawk so we can maybe even it up, but I want that thing to grow.
Alright.
That's the biggest part of my mohawk. I have an issue with trying to keep it growing because I always want it to grow.
Right.
So yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm the oldest of three girls. I was raised in my mother's a single mother, and we were brought up in a Pentecostal church.
What's the name of the church, girl? Because church folk, when they go to church, they remember the entire name.
The Pentecostal Church of God, Lincoln Incorporated. All right, I love y'all. It's my family. It's 4 churches that belong to my church. The Pentecostal Church of God in Lincoln is what they would call now headquarters, the main church.
And you said it was Kojic?
Mm-hmm.
So y'all had the YPWW?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I was raised, I've never worn makeup. I was not allowed to wear pants. We did not wear anything adorning as jewelry, none of that. Rings, unless you were married, you had a wedding ring.
Right. Wow, you can wear rings?
Yeah, this was the transition. I'm going to tell you about the transition. When I was first, like I said, I was raised, all I knew was the church because that's the life my mother introduced me to. We was very strict. Follow the Bible. You do what they say. You don't answer no questions. Everything that's in the Bible is law.
So what if you had problems like as a kid? I know when I was a kid and I had issues, who did you go to talk to?
The church. Whoever was in the church, that was my family. My mother, we were not allowed to have sleepovers with anyone that did not associate with our church family. So people, I'm very sociable. I've always been a huge people person.
You sure are. Like literally,
yeah.
Like the other day when I stopped past your job, what I did is you gave me this big hug.
Yeah.
And you just held me there like, yeah, I'm gonna give you all this love right now.
That's what I do.
You're going to, and I needed it.
I have a heart for the people. I always have. I have known for a long time that my gift was bringing people together. My father's family, my mother's family, the adopted family that I grew up in. I am believing that I want everybody I know to be one big family. So I treat people like that. I introduce everybody I know to each other. And hopefully they have the same respect. Like that's what it's about to me, just respecting each other enough to know that every one of us have something to offer each other. So, growing up, the pastors changed because the original founder of the church died. So of course with new people come new ideas and, generations. Sometimes you have to go through errors to find out what's right and what's, sometimes we are too strict on ourselves. Interpretations of what God's law is amazing. Some people don't. It's supposed to be a spiritual journey, but as a kid, I didn't understand the difference between spirituality and the Bible. I'm just gonna say it. It's just there's no other way to explain it.
So what do you mean? What do you mean spirituality?
Okay, so every Sunday we went to church from 9 in the morning to the first service to then because there's Sunday school.
Right.
9 to 10 to like 11:30. The first service started at 12. We maybe didn't get out of the first service till like 3. We take a little break and we come back by 5, and then that service would last until 8 or 9. So my life consisted of church on Sunday all day. Monday I'd get up to go to school. We did homework. We didn't participate in sports or extracurricular activities unless they would have something to do with the church. Tuesday nights, when we came home from school, we knew that Tuesday night was church night. Right. Thursday night was church night. Right. If there was a revival or a convention, or Women's Day, a youth anniversary, a pastor's anniversary,
missionaries anniversary.
Listen, church building fund anniversaries, anything that supported the growth of the church and the people that attended. And I'm gonna say it like that. Because we used to sell dinners for the building fund. We sold dinners for, school supplies.
Let me tell you, my mother,
it's a business. You learn business aspects there.
You do. And my mother would call me on Saturday. I'm like, Mom, what you doing? She's like, oh, I'm just going to the fish fry.
Yeah.
Girl, if you don't sit down somewhere.
Yeah. She's in the church convention hall.
Yeah.
Cooking dinners. I participated in cooking with the sisters. In the church to provide dinners for, like my mom, everybody in the church works. They believe in being responsible and accountable, which means you get up, you go to work, you take care of yourself, your family, whatever that is entailed in that, whatever your family is.
When you say accountable, did you have somebody to check in with as far as your walk with God was concerned?
No. The walk with God, like the way that I was raised, it was kind of like that's just what you were going to do. Mm-hmm. And the people around us, you could talk to them to teach us how to live the life, because it was just assumed that that was the only life we were going to live.
Right.
It was no, we didn't learn anything other than how to live a godly life.
Right. So in other words, you didn't have a choice.
Right. There was like kind of feel like you don't ask for a choice because that's just what you know.
Yeah, that's what Mom said you got to do. You got to go to church.
And I didn't start. I'm gonna say, they say rebelling, but I didn't start seeing things from a different perspective until I was 14 or 15, and when I began to ask questions about things, because my life was the Bible. Everything that I had a question about, the answer always came back from the Bible. There was always an answer from the Bible. So there were things in my life that were going on that I didn't understand, that the answers from the Bible just didn't seem like it made sense.
Right. So what are you talking about specifically?
What does Job have to do, going through all the trials and tribulations that he went through, have to do with me feeling like I don't know how to make people like me more? Even though I didn't know that I was blessed with a gift for people going to like me anyway. Mm-hmm. But what does Job... and him losing his whole family and all his kids and all his wealth, what does that have to do with my mental state of me wanting to fit in? Or I learned I'm an artist also, I'm very creative. What does that Daniel in the Lion's Den have to do with me wanting to explore opportunities and creativity, but there was nobody in my church that was an artist? I mean, that explored entrepreneurship and art.
So that means that whatever you saw in church, whatever jobs they had, whatever type of lifestyle they had, that's the type of lifestyle that you were
So it's the network helping each other. So if my the uncles in the church, the men in the church had lawn care services, most of the young men learned lawn care services. If somebody decided to go to electrical school, then the men, I knew men that knew how to build houses. They worked at places like Nanacook Homes. So they taught their sons how to build houses. I know people that work in banks. Whatever their path was that they chose to do. But back then, like I said, I grew up in Pentecostal church. I was born in 75. I came to Delaware. I started my education in Delaware. So we were groomed just to be studious. Mm-hmm. Whatever you do, you study. You do good in school. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Bible study taught us. You study what you want to learn. So anything that I did, I excelled in school. Mm-hmm. Because I just like knowledge. I love to read, so school was very easy for me. I'm not strong in mathematics, but it didn't deter me from going to school. Like, I love to go to school. I love to socialize. I learned time management, and that's one thing my mother taught me. Through church, we learned time management. Because we're in church so much that you have to prepare for the next day. So things like we would take our clothes out before we went to bed, iron all our stuff up before we go to bed, so then when we wake up, we're prepared to go. I learned a lot of good values. How to be respectful.
Me too.
How to care for others.
Yep.
About community, because we were big on community. I can say that the church taught me how to love others that I didn't know anything about. But the most thing I learned was what I could perceive as love. At one time I felt I was accepted. That was just where I was going to be for the rest of my life. At one point in my life, I felt like that until I hit my late teens.
Did you feel like once you hit your late teens and you started to be able to think for yourself and see the world through your own eyes as an individual, did you ever feel suffocated?
A lot of the things that I was feeling, I felt like I couldn't share. And this is to be true. For this to be true, I have a woman in my church that I love dearly. I love all the women in my church. They were my mentors. I call them my mentors. The women that tried to teach me how to be a woman. And years later, after everybody knew I lived a lesbian lifestyle, she came to me and apologized to me for not listening, because I did reach out to some people to say that there were things that were happening to me that was hurting me. There were things that were happening to me I didn't understand. There were things that were happening that I felt like I didn't have a safe space to share. And because of the close-knit family environment, that woman felt like that she couldn't take it to anyone either, because it was so serious. And I'm talking about me coming out as telling somebody for the first time that I had been with a woman. I was 16 years old, and it rocked my world. And I didn't know where I could express that, because the only thing I ever heard about, I didn't even, honestly, people, you want to know what I knew about homosexuality, is that it was an abomination to God. I didn't understand what gay was. I didn't understand any of those terms. Homosexuality was an abomination, and it was things that you didn't talk about. It just didn't talk about it because it's wrong. Just like they used to say, fornication is a sin. You're going to die and go to hell. You know,
right.
Homosexuality is an abomination. This thing, you just stay away from it. Keep away from it. If you don't indulge in it, it won't affect you good.
Right,
you know,
right.
Same thing like
funny,
drugs.
Though. It's funny though how they talk about those types of scriptures or sins in the Bible, but how many of those women in there were virgins when they got married?
Right.
How many of those women in there?
But because it's catered to the men's mentality of what they believe women are. I remember reading the story about Jezebel and was like, oh my God, no way. They're not going to take the whore and stone her, are they? And they all had sex with her. Why don't they stone themselves? You know what I'm saying?
Right,
like, that didn't make sense to me. Like, why are you going to stone the woman that all of you just had sex with? How do you know she's a whore? Oh, you all slept with her. That's how you know. Right. So, like, those kind of questions I couldn't ask because it was going against the law of the and now I know that the stories are interpretations. But then we were living our lives based on these stories that didn't seem like they had room in my life. Like,
it didn't fit.
Yeah, it didn't fit me. Even though, yes, I believe in God and the Son of God and the Holy Ghost. But what does that have to do with me feeling some tingling sensations that I can't tell anybody? Because for one, I'm not even supposed to be talking about sex unless I'm getting ready to get married, because that's how strict my life was. You don't talk about sex. It's it's wrong unless you are dating someone to be married. That was a whole other thing too. No dating.
No dating.
I
can date either.
But without a chaperone. You know who you know through the church. We all grew up, so trust us like we're friends. So we hang out with our friends. I played football with the guys in my church in a skirt. So I knew all of them boys in my church because we're like family. So to them, what you need to be alone for in the corner or going to McDonald's for? If anything you need to do, you can do in the open.
Yeah, I talked about that in my book. It was an overwhelming attention to sexuality, the perceived, you know what I'm saying, the perception of sexuality. It was something that they were just mad over.
But I to be honest, my lifestyle was a choice for me, and I need people to understand, like, I don't discriminate against why anybody lives the life they do, but for me it was a choice. I grew up watching women in my life be the humble ones, be the submissive ones, women that had husbands that had addictions in the church, women that had husbands that were abusive in the church, women that had adulterous relationships and had other children in the church. And women were expected to just, God gonna fix it. God gonna fix it. Just hang in there. And every marriage that I know to this day is over 20 years in longevity. Yes, every relationship. I can't say I don't know people that have long marriages, because I do. There are many people in my life that have had long marriages, but that doesn't mean that they didn't go through human things. And we as children, testimony service was a wonderful thing. It was like the Wendy Williams show for real before Wendy Williams came. We'd be sitting in church like, oh my God, sister such and such, she did. The people her job did what? Oh my God, God blessed her through that. Oh my God, God is real. We got to thank him for that, because that was wrong with them people. Her husband did what? They wouldn't give specifics, but anytime a woman stands up and she's crying and she got black eyes, it don't take a scientist to figure out that something's going on, because children talk too.
Right.
And her children were my friends. And when children are in distress, they talk to their friends.
Yeah.
So we know that, their dad didn't come home last week.
Wow.
So we were living lives that the Bible couldn't explain, except that Jesus paid it all.
Right.
For
but
us
there
to
was
be
no real
free.
Answer.
Yeah.
But there was no real direction.
How do you tell a woman that, it's okay to stay in an abusive relationship?
Right. Oh my God.
How do you tell children that it's okay for your dad to molest you?
Wow.
How do you and justify it that Jesus paid it all for that man to also be forgiven, but for you to heal through that?
Right.
I was abused as a child. My story is that I was molested at the age of 3 from a daycare. It's why henceforth my mother was terrified to trust other people. I was her first opportunity to try to learn to trust other entities besides that church, and it failed her. because a man molested her firstborn daughter. So I was not allowed to be around anybody else. That's why my mother was strict, because somebody violated me at a young age and she didn't know how to protect me.
Right.
And she trusted the church to help her protect me.
Right.
That's why I couldn't go to anybody else's slumber parties. I couldn't go to school events. We didn't go to school dances. We didn't do anything. If you weren't part of the organization that was built to protect us, my mother was not playing that. Nope.
Now let me ask you a question. When you came out to the church, because you did, right?
No. It was a more, I was brought out.
Oh, wow.
Because I was hiding, because I'm a musician. I love the church. I love music. I'm a songwriter. I'm a lyricist, however you want to term it. So when you, yeah, so, going to church and learning my craft, which was a drummer, to be told that I no longer could express myself in that way, when it was the one tie to the church that I had that was keeping me there. Because I was frustrated as a young teenager, not being able to go to the dances, can't go to track meets, can't go to I'm a football fanatic. I couldn't go to football games. Yeah. I couldn't do any of that. So I was beginning to get frustrated with the church life. Like, why can't I participate in other things? So along with wanting to reach out and just live a life that I was sheltered from, they took the only love of the church that I had, which was music. Because I was participating in a lifestyle they said was a bad representation for Christ.
So hold on, stop it. Don't say no more. Right there. You were living a life that was a bad representation for church, but you were surrounded by men in the church who beat their wives and their children and who molested kids. How does that make you feel?
Angry. And it made me feel even more angry because as a young teenager, there were sexual things done to me by the boys in my church that I have regressed memories. I do not remember my childhood because of the trauma that I experienced sexually as a young girl. Yeah, I was the pretty one with the pretty brown eyes. Everybody thought I was a doll baby, and there were things that were, I don't know if I volunteered or not, because I can't remember. All I know is that were things that were making me uncomfortable, and I chose, when I was introduced to a lifestyle that was different than what I was brought up to believe was what was for me, I immediately jumped at the opportunity to do something different, because I did not want to be one of them women in my church. I didn't want it to live my life thinking that men had to rule over me and that I had to follow and be submissive to whatever it was that was causing these feelings in me. I didn't even know where they was coming from because my trauma was so deep that my brain wasn't allowed to process it at the time.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think that because you were assaulted, because that's what it was, you were assaulted. So you're saying that because you were assaulted, you were more attracted to women?
I'm thinking because I was assaulted, another opportunity and another alternative to the lifestyle I had was welcomed.
Wow.
Because I was looking for escape from the life that I was living. So I was looking for an out. Henceforth, I became an addict at the age of 16. I started smoking weed. I started smoking cigarettes, which my mother has never done. I did not grow up in a house with cursing. I didn't grow up in a house with men running it out of my house. I didn't grow up with alcohol. I didn't grow up with drugs. I didn't grow up with my mom telling me I'm nobody. But I was looking for an out because I was hurting and I didn't have an outlet.
And that woman that you said you went to,
she was also a member of my church.
Yes, and you said that she didn't listen. She had to apologize to you. How did that make you feel when she apologized?
I felt bad for her because I felt like that she felt like that my life was going down such a wrong path, and that she in her mind thought that I'm at a point of no return, and she feels responsible for that. And I felt like, how sad is that to feel like you're in her eyes, I'm going against the law of God, which is life after death. And I felt like she was telling me that she feels bad that I chose death.
Wow.
That's how I feel, because that's really to me what she was saying. It's like, I'm so sorry you chose death because I didn't tell anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's the sincerity of a grown woman apologizing to another grown woman about a sexual identity choice that I made. Because it's so deep in her that it will cause me to go to hell and die and burn forever. She apologized. And that's deep.
It is.
That's deep, that she feels like I'm going to hell, and she feels responsible, and she don't want that on her soul.
So
That's a kind of a hurtful feeling. Her apology was accepted, but I felt like, damn, she thinks I'm doomed because I know how they think.
Well, you're not doing.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying.
Right,
like when
right,
she said,
right.
I was like, I kind of like, oh. I said, sister, I ain't gonna say her name, but you don't have to apologize to me. I made a choice. She was like, no, but I could have intervened somehow.
What? That's the thing.
Mind
That's
you,
it right there. That's it.
Yeah, mind you, I had transitioned from the girl with the long hair and the feminine stockings and dresses to I no longer wear dresses.
Right.
I wear men's clothing. I wear short haircut. At this time, this is the woman that they were reintroduced to because they didn't know me as that. They knew me as Kita Cat, the little pretty brown-eyed little girl with the long pigtails.
Right, right.
You know, running around in skirts and stockings and church shoes. But I was now transitioning to the woman that I felt comfortable being. I like men's pants. I like polo shirts.
And it's not that you're trying to be a man, right?
No, I'm not trying to be a man. I wish I would tell women, why would I want to be a man? I'm better than a man. I'm a woman. I'm capable of doing things that men can't do emotionally.
Right.
Most men can't do emotionally. Yeah, I may adapt to being a little aggressive. That's because I've had to learn how to protect myself. I am the oldest of 3 girls. I am the protector in my family.
Right.
So that doesn't have anything to do with it being a masculine trait. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
I protect people that I love. So I learned how to do that. So I learned how to fight to do that. I can, I learned to take trash and things out. That wasn't anything masculine. That was somebody had to do it in my house in order to keep your house clean. You take the trash out.
Right.
If you want to learn how to put gas in your car, you learn how to put gas in your car. I had a woman to teach me because I didn't grow up with a father. But I had men in my church that helped me learn other things that could be seen as masculine, but they were just life skills.
Right.
Just life skills. There's no sexual identity to life skills.
Right.
Right. So what? I love football. I love basketball. I like sports, but don't most people?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really like football that much. Yeah. But I've never been a football girl, but I love basketball.
Yeah. So
I used to play in high school. Did you play?
I was track. I was a track star. Volleyball. Those are my things.
But volleyball's not a sport.
It is. You try to get out there in the sand and run with your feet and dig and try to eyeball the ball that's coming when the sun blinding you.
All you're doing is hitting the ball across the net.
And they said the same thing about tennis. But look here, it's a sport. It's real.
Look at Serena's her legs.
Listen,
Jesus.
They're real.
That's death traps.
That's a real workout right there. That's a real workout.
But nobody really understands the weight that it causes you to have to carry throughout life.
Yeah.
When you have that type of experience of figuring out who you are. Yeah. Right?
Shoot, girl. Sometimes I still don't know who I am.
Do you find that the things that people have said to you still hear in your head?
Yeah. I still, and to be honest, on my way here, my wife was looking at me like I was crazy. I was like, I'm excited to be at Michelle's, but I'm nervous at the same time. I have this thing, even though I know I'm wonderfully made and I fit in everywhere and that people, I'm just who I am, I have a nervous feeling about being accepted. About, am I good enough?
Right.
Do I measure up to the standards? And all of those things I learned from not following the rules of the church and being shown that it's unacceptable not to follow the rules. So I still carry that with me to this day on my jobs. If I don't follow the rules and I get reprimanded, I'm like, man, and it, as much as we don't want it to affect our ego, it does.
It does. It has to. It has no other choice.
Yeah. So I'm always, even though I am the most sociable person in my environment at work, I still look at some people like, I wonder if they really like me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I wonder if they just faking because they at my job and I'm nice. But would they really talk to me outside of here? Things like that. I made a statement last week. Man, I don't have any friends in Baltimore, but since I started working at ShopRite, if Corona wasn't real, if I had a party, man, my party would be packed because all I would have to do is stand here and give out invitations and everybody that I speak to would come to my party.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, that's why you're so kind. I find that a lot of, especially managers, people who have been treated the worst in management or in their careers, they make the best managers. Yeah. And people who have experienced some of the worst things in the world, they make the best friends. Yeah. And you are always welcome to hang out with me.
Yeah, cool.
You know what I'm saying? It's not a big thing. And I just, it's I guess it's just uncomfortable to think about what you went through in your childhood and then having to deal with the
not just my family, everybody I knew.
Wow.
I
So,
felt
who
abandoned.
outed you in church?
Um, so my sister and I are very close. We are a year apart, a year and a half. You know, we're very close. And because I didn't have any other friends, my sister and I, to this day, she is my everything. She is my journal. She is my therapist.
You need that.
So when I was younger, it began because we shared the same bedroom. And when I first had my first sexual encounter with a woman, because of the way that I thought about homosexuality, I broke down to my sister and said, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. And she said, what do you mean? And I told her that I had, you know, we weren't even comfortable enough to talk about sex between with boys because I wasn't very sexually active with boys. But the first time I had sex with a boy, my sister and I had a conversation about it because my oldest nephew, and this is how this relates, my oldest nephew's father, his brother is the first boy I had sex with. So my sister and I were messing with brothers. My sister and I messed with brothers that were friends of our church, and he was willing to me. That was the first person that I willingly said I want to try something with, and that was when I was 16 years old. Well, it was like 15. That's when I first wanted to experiment with sex on my own, voluntarily. That I said, okay, I want to try it. I don't remember any time before that I voluntarily had sex. So at that time, his brother and him, you know, my sister and I, we were cute little girls. They were cute boys. We were the same age. We lived in front and back of each other. So that was the first time I volunteered for sex, and I didn't like it. And I told my sister about it. But she ended up trying it, ended up getting pregnant with my nephew.
Oh wow! So how did they treat your sister at church? What they say to her? What they say? Now. What they say to her?
What? Listen, I was so because not only did my sister get pregnant at a young age, under 16, so did 2 or 3 of her friends. And even though they were, you know, chastised, but there's a child there, so you don't want to make them feel, because we don't believe in abortion, so they're not going to banish you enough to the point where you get rid of a child, because that is unacceptable in the eyes of God. You do not kill children, period. So there was no such thing as abortions. We didn't talk about abortion, so yeah, they may have been reprimanded and scolded, but they were accepted and loved because a child was coming, and they wanted to make sure that that child grew up in an environment where it was accepted. So yeah, while they were reprimanded or scolded, they still had baby showers, and people still catered to them from church.
Same folks that talk to you like you was nothing.
And this is the thing, it was a hushed silence with me while the girls were visibly pregnant and everybody knew. They said what they had to say about it, but it was such a tender subject that nobody came to me and be like, are you gay? My mother could not even say that word.
Wow.
My mother could not say the word gay. When she first came to me and asked me, she said, why didn't you tell me you was like that? Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean like that? What's that? She couldn't, it was so sensitive back then that they couldn't even say the word gay. So
my mother couldn't even call my wedding a wedding. She said, how was the service?
Yeah. The commitment ceremony.
What?
So yeah. But my sister was she is still my everything. And I went to her and said, I'm gonna die. I'm going to hell. And I just want you to know I love you. And she's like, what are you talking about? I told her about me and my first encounter with a woman. And my mother, I told you, she don't allow us to hang around with people except if you're in a church. And because this girl was a part of our church, she trusted that I could go there for the weekend. So after I made the confession to my sister, I was allowed to go to this same young girl's home. And my sister could not hold her fear of me dying. She told my mother and the way that she went to my mother, she was sobbing, snot, tears. And my mom was like, what is wrong with you? She was like, Keita's gonna die. Keita's gonna die. We gotta save her. She's gonna die. Because we were made to believe that if you went against God's will, your only end was death. And because I was knowingly going against something that we were told was wrong, I was going to die. So she could not hold that thing. And because my sister and I are so close, she went to my mom sobbing, tears, crying. And my mother finally got it out of her. What's going on? Keita's messing with a girl. My mother called the girl's home, put my daughter on the phone. And that's when she said to me, why didn't you tell me that girl was like that? What are you talking about, Mom? Like what? You know what I'm talking about. Don't play with me. Pack your stuff. I'm on my way. Now, mind you, my mother...
How old were you then?
I was 16. mind you, I told you, it was crazy. My mother was in church my whole life, but at this particular time in my mother's life, she had what they consider backslid. My mother had not been with a man since my father. And at 16 years old, my mother had her first sexual encounter with another man other than my father. And the church, she was so ashamed about it that she disappeared from our lives.
From your life?
Yeah, she stopped coming home from work to be with this man that we didn't know what was going on. And when we found out that my mother was with a man, we also called my grandmother crying, saying, my mom's going to hell. She's going to die. Because she was going against what was right in the Bible. Because my mother was married to my father, even though he had separated from my mother for years, she still was held to this law that because she's a married woman, she can't participate in anything else with any other man.
Yep.
So when she found a man that adored my mother, this man from Mexico adored my mother. He bought her roses. He paid her bills. He showered her with lunch at work.
Look at it.
And her humanness came to accept the kindness from this man that wasn't her husband.
So in that case, your mother chose her lifestyle as well.
And she left the church, which means she left us because she was ashamed because the church did not accept that. Even though, mind you, we listen to the stories about all the shit that the women went to in the church. My mother felt ashamed and disconnected herself because she felt like she was wrong. And so, mind you, she came to this girl's house with this man to tell me I was wrong.
That's how they do.
My mother pulled up with her boyfriend, that's not my father, that's against the church, to come to a home where I was practicing a lesbian lifestyle at this time, to snatch me out of it, to tell me I was wrong. And you don't do what I do, you do what I say. Wow. You follow God's law. You don't follow my example, you follow what is right.
Wow.
So yeah, that was powerful. But now the church has a different understanding. This is why I said the evolution of religion is a difference between spirituality. Because I really believe that right now my mother's going to die alone, but if they had just understood that spirituality had nothing to do with that religion, with her being married at one time, my dad did her wrong, my mother could have been married right now to this day and had a man to take care of her.
And been happy?
Yep. And she lives alone in her home that she has paid for herself.
My God.
And will be alone for the rest of her life because she just believes that that's just what it is for her.
You know what? It's
and that's sad.
It is.
I don't want my mom alone. She needs help. She's
people
hurting.
in church don't understand that you are messing with people's lives. They're you know what I'm saying?
So unfortunately, my mom was a young girl at she went to that church when she was like she had me when she was 16. So she was a young lady just looking for. My dad had hurt her so bad she was hurt. She was looking for relief from her pain. That's all she had to hold on to because my mother came from a dysfunctional family. You want to talk about dysfunction? You don't heal dysfunction by accepting God. And I think people get that messed up. Dysfunction is dysfunction. Healing is called healing for a reason because there's dysfunction. We came from a dysfunctional, my mother came from a dysfunctional life. She's one of 12 children. There was dysfunction in that home. They were from the South. So that's a whole nother entity in itself. Slave mentality, but one of 12. This dysfunction. You talk about all kinds of things. Molestation within the black families is real.
It really is.
Cousins and brothers and sisters mating is unacceptable, but it happens. And people don't want to talk about that real dysfunction within families. Like it happens.
Because it makes them uncomfortable.
Right, and they feel like people would judge them. But, it is what it is. And, but like I said, it's a difference between, you learn the difference between spirituality and religion when you get old enough to experience real life stuff.
Right, absolutely.
So I separated myself from that environment for not because I wanted to, but for one, I felt rejected and told I wasn't good enough to fit into that circle. So it made me put my tail between my legs and have to find another venue or something else to belong to. Because once that happened, I felt like I didn't belong to anything or anyone. I felt like the black sheep, what you want to call it, this rotten apple.
Yeah.
The one that's going to spoil it for everybody else.
Pretty much. I'm used to that myself.
Yeah, so.
It's
So that's why, drugs and alcohol became another alternative for me. Because I was looking for a way to ease the fact that I had lost everyone close to me that I knew. I also left my mother's home at that age, so I had a foster mother that I didn't know anything about that ended up treating me terribly wrong. So I was going through a whole lot of things, and that's how I got introduced to drugs and alcohol through my foster mom's children.
So wait a minute. So how did you leave your mom's house?
I ran away.
You did?
Okay. I ended up running away. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt suffocated. I felt like I wasn't loved. I felt like everything I did was scrutinized. And I felt like I had no other reason to stay there. Even though it hurt me to leave my sisters. I cried because I left my sister. I didn't cry because I left my mother. I cried because I left my sister. And I didn't know when I was going to see her because I didn't know how they were going to perceive me saying. That was the only way I knew how to say, my life is my life, and I'm tired of you telling me what I should do with my life. I want to learn to live on my own because I don't like anything that you're teaching me. That was my statement. And when I did that, my mother had to go to court and sign her rights over to my foster mother. And it was the first time I ever saw my mom cry behind me.
So because you ran away, it was your decision. She had the option to sign you over because you wanted to go?
The option was in order for me, because I had an aunt that was a social worker, and the way she explained it to me, and my mother said, yes, Keita, I understand you want to be free, but you're not of legal age. In order for us to make sure that, we can't stop you from leaving, but what we want to do is make sure you're in a safe environment. In order to do that, somebody has to be your guardian. The only way that you can make sure that you have food, because that food stamps were real back then too, they were the paper dollar bills. But in order for wherever I chose to go for me to be taken care of, for the state to help take care of me because I was a minor, I had to have a guardian. And because I chose that I didn't want my mother to be my guardian anymore, I had to find another guardian in order so that I can have things like food stamps, place to stay, clothes. I could get vouchers for clothes and stuff like that. So because my aunt understood the social system, it was best that my mother signed her rights over so that I wouldn't be out in the streets with no help. So that was the option that my mom took because she knew I no longer wanted to be in her home. She still didn't want me in the streets with no help. She loved me. And the day that she cried in court, it made me cry because it was the first time I had ever seen my mom shed a tear behind losing her child. That's how she felt, that she was losing her firstborn child. But I had to be free.
Right.
And at the cost of me being free, I lost the connection with my mother. But I didn't really, but at that time. Because I didn't want to be who they thought I should be. I wanted to know who I was, and I just wanted the chance to get to know who that was. And I'm not going to say, unfortunately, alcohol and drugs became a part of my life at that time, but it was the route that I had to take in order to learn about me. So I'm okay with it now. It still hurts.
Yeah.
Because I wish I could say that my introduction to drugs and alcohol was a happy one.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was out of pain. It was out of, I wanted to fit in with the kids around me. I wanted to be accepted. So I chose to participate in something that I did not know about because I wanted to fit in. And I didn't want my foster sisters to tell me that I didn't belong there either.
Right, because you ain't want to be rejected a second time.
Yeah, but let me tell you about the pressure of being a church girl.
Ooh, talk about that.
When I went to my foster mother's home, because I didn't live like them, like I said, I didn't even wear pants. They wore nice earrings. They had the big bamboo earrings. They were into...
So hold on, you was a lesbian in a skirt?
I was messing with a woman.
You was a dom in a skirt?
I didn't know I was a dom. That's why I say labels. What are they? What are labels?
No, they're nothing. No, I'm just messing
Yeah, but yeah, pretty much. I was a boy in a skirt. And they want to say I was a pretty girl that didn't want to wear dresses anymore because I thought they made me vulnerable to men. And that everything I did in my life was to fight for my vulnerability towards men. And that's what people don't understand about why I changed my appearance. I did not want to be attractive to men. It wasn't about not being attractive. It was like I didn't want men to feel like they could take advantage of me because I was pretty. Because that's what I felt like had been done my entire youth. And I didn't want to get caught up in that cycle. Well, because God made you beautiful, you're made for man, then you just got to accept whatever comes with it. No, I don't. If
you could stand up in front of, some girls that, are in the closing church, or have experienced what you've experienced, what would you tell them to do? What advice would you give any of them?
would say the first thing is that you need to understand what spirituality is and who God is. Because people's interpretation will have you so twisted and make you believe. And not saying, listen, I believe that God made me wonderfully. Everything that I am, he made it to his glory. And I will never deny that. Every gift that he has given me has been used to help others that suffer through things that I don't even know about. And that's not because he put me in this little box saying this is how you're supposed to do it, this is where you're supposed to be, this is how you're supposed to go, but because I am designed to reach people that other people can't reach. My story has gone the way that it has. I would encourage them to listen to your inner self. I am still the wonderful, creative young girl I was before the church decided I wasn't good enough. I'm still the loving, caring person that I was. I still like the same things that I liked then. I just would encourage young girls to enjoy who they are. Don't listen to labels. All of us have a desire to be loved and cared for and have relationships and friendships and yes, explore all of that. Don't allow people to tell you that, God is right and just and good. But everybody wants to live a good life. It's just common sense. If you put good things in, you get good things out. If you put bad things in, you get your results determine your actions. So if I live a wholesome life, if I don't smoke cigarettes, I live 20 years longer. It's just common sense. Mm-hmm. If I don't use drugs, it's a less chance I have a heart attack happening or aneurysm. Mm-hmm. If I continue to go to school and study and put my money in investment, in the end, I see a benefit. Right. So it's the same thing to me with spirituality. If you take the time to study the word and seek wisdom, there's a difference between reading something but seeking the knowledge and the wisdom behind it. Yeah. You live the life that you study, and that's what I believe. You live the life that you study, and I say that as a person who studied anger, violence, addiction, mental health. I studied those things because I had to, because I didn't know what I was going through, so I had to read about it. I had to learn what bipolar disorder was. I had to learn what post-traumatic stress disorder was. To maneuver my life and understand why I went through the changes I did. I learned about aggression and violence. First through a personal encounter, but I also had to learn how to fight. That took practice. I had to fight somebody to learn it, So I couldn't read about it all day long and watch other people fight all day long, but if I didn't practice it and study it, I wouldn't know how to do it. So you live what you practice and study. And so it just so happens that people that live good, when they say good moral lives, they don't have angry people around them because they try to stay away from things that are at discord. Mm-hmm. You don't put yourself in the middle of things if you're not trying to live a discord life. You don't just go out in the street and start cussing people out because you're about peace. So, spirituality is where it is, though. God has manifested and revealed things to me that some church people say that he shouldn't be able to minister to me because I ain't living right. Yeah. That's the difference. That's how you know there's a difference between religion and spirituality. Mm-hmm. Because if God can't minister to something that he created, then what are you talking about?
There is no God if that's the case.
Exactly. Because if he doesn't, you're telling me that he controls everything to its entirety, but he can't minister to me and talk to me, and I'm created by him, something's wrong with that statement. If you don't think that he can use me to his glory, but you're telling me he runs everything, then how does that make sense?
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. If I am created by the Almighty Creator, and my life is already ordained and my life is already predestined, how can he not minister to me if I'm his? So, I have gotten over the fact that I'm not the picture of what God wants to use. Yes, I am. Because I've talked to people that have had no hope. I've talked to people that didn't understand that they were valuable. I've talked to people that didn't understand that they have a purpose here. And it's not just to be somebody else's punching bag or whatever, slave. I got to spread the message of love, no matter what my story or how tangled it seemed it came from, or the message is love, and that we're going to make it through this, everything we go through with love, not hate, not judgment, not you don't fit in, not you ain't good enough, not we don't understand you, so we don't keep you to the side. No. It's a spiritual journey.
The real reason why the disciples hated Mary Magdalene is because
she didn't have that education like them.
She didn't have, all she had was compassion.
Mm-hmm.
She wasn't trying to burn down cities
and that's the same correlation with the Sadducees.
Yep.
How they felt like they were a higher society.
Absolutely.
Because of the things that they gained materially. The correlation with Jesus was so powerful is that he could speak to every type of character you could ever think of.
Right.
Whether he was the rich man on the hill, or the man that had everything, or the prostitute
you
in the whorehouse.
Because Jesus never told a person what to do.
Right.
He told a story.
Right. And he let you choose.
Yes.
And that's the powers that we have a choice.
Yep.
He didn't say, he just said, follow me. He didn't
Yep.
say, you got to, or this is the way you do it. He gave examples and he just lived.
Yep.
I wish I could give myself one of the best hugs, like the hug I gave you in the store.
Man,
I wish I could hug myself like that.
It was so out of nowhere. I was just like, and that I had a lot on my mind that day too. And when you hugged me, it was like, it went away.
So like, I tell people all the time, I hug people because I get that hug back. You get it? Not only did I hug you because you might have needed it, I didn't know that. I hugged you because I needed it. You know what I mean? And you just happen to feel it the same way. You know, so yeah, life is funny, but it's good. I mean, well, I wouldn't change. Of all the trauma that I've been through, I wouldn't change a thing.
Me neither. I really wouldn't.
Cause I wouldn't be who I am.
Man, I'm amazing.
Yeah, I'm amazing.
And I'm amazing because not only did I survive, but I took stones with me from those traumatic experiences. That's what God told Israel to do when they crossed over the Red Sea. He said, take stones with you so that you'll remember where you came from and what I did for you.
Right.
You have to remind me.
Yes.
I tell him every day, God, I thank you for what you did for me here. I didn't forget. I'm not ungrateful. I just want to remind you that I'm grateful. No, it's just, I love cutting hair. It's a way for me to be creative, and it slows my mind down. That's why I do so much art. Like what you did. That joint crispy, boy.
Does it make me look like a movie star?
Well, I'm so happy you decided to stop by.
Yes.
And,
yes.
sit in my shed.
You know it.
And I enjoyed your story.
Oh.
You preached to me.
Listen.
You know? Like you a preacher for real. It's in you. I don't know
Oh,
when you gonna preach, how you gonna preach, but when you do, I'm there. Evangelist.
No.
We are going to have you back.
Yes.
We're gonna have you bring another word.
Yeah.
We gonna make sure we feed you. I gotta feed everybody. Black people hungry all the time.
It makes you feel good.
I'm just excited that we did this.
Yes.
And thank you again for
No problem. Thanks for having me.